Welcome to Second Sunrise Stories. Relax and enjoy our captivating tales. If you love what you hear, please like, comment, and subscribe to help us bring you more incredible stories. The woman in Marcus Ford's heart had a serious traffic accident in a remote place. I suggested taking her to the nearest medical facility for treatment, but in the end she still lost too much blood and died. Afterwards, Marcus Ford didn't blame me at all. He devoted himself completely to his career. 3 years later, I hemorrhaged during difficult labor. He prevented my rescue, causing me to lose both lives. Sophie Harper, this is your retribution. How does it feel to bleed to death? Because of that girl, yet you hate me to the bone. After being reborn, when news of that girl's traffic accident was sent to the corporation, I chose to remain indifferent. I silently watched Marcus mobilize a private jet, forcing 5,000 employees in the company to donate blood. Hundreds of supercars lined up one after another to clear the way, beginning a breathtaking and touching rescue operation. We must take Diana to Beijing for surgery immediately. The Ford family has money. Even the king of hell must step aside. You useless bunch, think of something quickly. If anything happens to Diana, all of you get out of Ford Corporation. When news of Diana's accident came, Marcus went frantic like ants on a hot pan, throwing a thunderous tantrum right in the company. Everyone looked at each other meaningfully, then all turned toward me. Department Head Sophie. As the head of the corporation's crisis management department, Vice President Ford, indeed. When it comes to someone's life, besides the victim's closest relatives, no one has the right to give advice. I respect all of CEO Ford's decisions and will absolutely follow and cooperate. Marcus looked at me in shock, his whole person stunned. Nonsense. Vice President Wilson couldn't hold back anymore, slamming the table and standing up, pointing at my face and shouting, "Sophie, you're speaking too irresponsibly. The rescue journey exceeds 3,000 kilometers with countless difficulties. Time is critical. Do you know how many company resources and funds this will consume? If this affects the launch, can you bear the consequences?" I smiled coldly. Vice President Wilson, you can't dump all the responsibility on me like this. After all, the final decision-making power is in CEO Ford's hands. I quietly retreated behind the crowd. Without me standing in the middle, the executives unanimously opposed strongly, but it only further ignited Marcus's stubborn temper. "Everyone just do as I say. I'll take full responsibility," he declared heroically. In the end, he brushed aside all dissenting opinions, mobilizing all the corporation's resources, connections and money, disregarding everything, just hoping Diana would be safe. Looking at Marcus's retreating figure brimming with fighting spirit, I lowered my head to hide the mockery in my eyes. In my previous life, after thoroughly understanding Diana's injury condition, I had taken great effort to consult experts, objectively analyzing for Marcus the pros and cons of local treatment versus transferring to Beijing. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Sophie, if it were you, what would you choose?" At that time, the company was in the critical phase of preparing to go public. Taking Diana to Beijing for treatment would cost enormous amounts. More importantly, fearing uncertain events on the journey, I suggested Diana be hospitalized locally. My objective and calm analysis left Marcus speechless. He stared at me intently for nearly half a minute, his expression extremely complex. Finally he said, "This time I trust you." Because of this trust, I immediately arranged for 2 teams of experts to fly there to assist that very night. I had calculated everything, but didn't expect Diana to have Rh-negative blood type and the local blood bank to be in short supply. In the end, due to excessive blood loss, Diana died on the operating table. I was endlessly remorseful, wanting to resign to take responsibility, but was viciously grabbed by the collar by Marcus. No chance. Then he suddenly kissed me. "Sophie, don't leave. Don't abandon me alone." I hugged him, crying while apologizing. After that, Marcus became like a different person, composed and mature. He poured all his energy into his career. 1 year later, the day Ford Corporation successfully went public was also the day Marcus proposed to me. Until I hemorrhaged during difficult labor and he coldly abandoned my treatment, I finally realized this marriage was all a deception, a conspiracy. In the operating room, he held me, crying desperately while speaking words of love and encouragement for me to try hard and be strong. But as I gradually lost consciousness, his voice rang in my ears, distorted and full of schadenfreude. "Sophie, do you understand now the feeling of despair Diana had bleeding to death on the operating table back then? If it weren't for you, I would definitely have saved Diana at all costs, using going public to pressure me. Hemph. For Diana, even if I became penniless, I'd be willing. It turned out he had never forgotten Diana's death that year, still hating me to the bone. Diana's life hung by a thread. Marcus's urgent orders were issued one after another within just 10 short minutes. Chairman Ford's medical jet carrying 2 teams of professors and emergency experts had taken off to ensure Diana could reach the hospital as quickly as possible after getting off the plane. Marcus had mobilized hundreds of supercars from partners and close friends. By then, the long dragon-like convoy of supercars would open a path of life, creating a magnificent and touching scene under the blue sky that would surely become a memorable legend. Just when Mrs. Ford learned of Marcus's reckless actions, news also came that Diana had Rh-negative blood type and needed nearly 10 liters of blood for surgery. I was urgently called to the CO's office by the Ford family. As soon as I pushed open the door, Mrs. Ford criticized me for not caring about the company's overall situation, not fulfilling my job responsibilities, never once mentioning this was Marcus's arbitrary decision. This was indeed the Ford family's style. She blamed me only because she was afraid of displeasing her precious son, who had been spoiled beyond measure. Chairman Ford's face was deathly pale as he shouted orders. Charter a jet and leave. Call all those cars back immediately. Isn't this just putting on a show? I glanced at Marcus being scolded by his parents. At this moment his face was dark, with some dissatisfaction and defiance still visible between his brows. Department head Sophie, what do you think? He raised an eyebrow lazily, spinning a pen in his hand. Hemph, trying to make me take the blame again. I continued playing dead with a resigned look. CEO Ford, please rest assured. As long as you give the word, I'm willing to go through fire and water. As head of public relations, as long as I don't have to take responsibility, I can say flowery words anywhere. I'll never be as foolish as in my previous life again. Mrs. Ford was so angry her eyes rolled back, her assistant hurriedly giving her medicine. Looking for me was truly harboring a snake. Mrs. Ford pointed at me, her voice full of resentment. How laughable, talking about gratitude and repayment. I had given up my dream of becoming a surgeon to help Marcus manage the company, but what did I get in return? After Marcus bluntly declared he would abandon my treatment, I had used all my strength to cling to her, my eyes begging her to save my life. Yet she pried off my fingers one by one, with a fake expression advising, Harper, you young couple solve your own problems. Marcus won't harm you. I still remember clearly in my previous life, as soon as Diana had an accident, I immediately reported to her, Aunt Ford, you should come to the company. I'm worried CO Ford will. She smiled encouragingly at me. Harper, I trust you. You must help look after Marcus. Don't let him cause chaos. Just then a phone call came. After Marcus listened, his face changed dramatically. He stood up abruptly. Nuff. The urgent matter now is to collect a large amount of Rh-negative blood. Quickly gather people to go to the hospital. The nurses there are waiting. I pursed my lips. CEO Ford, this rare blood type needs too much. We can't gather enough quickly. Marcus anxiously paced back and forth. I know in your heart you don't want to save Diana at all. If she, CEO. I interrupted his accusation. I took out the documents I had prepared, speaking evenly. To not understand your concerns. To not affect Miss Chen's treatment, I voluntarily resign. Then I handed Mrs. Ford a notebook, coldly saying, this is a list of all the assistance you've given me since I was 12 years old. I've calculated it according to inflation rate, multiplied by 5 to pay you back. Mrs. Ford stared at me in shock. Oh, of course I've also calculated interest. Unexpectedly, the notebook I used in my previous life to remember their kindness had now become a tool to cut ties with the Ford family in this life. They shouldn't hope to use gratitude to bind me anymore. Marcus angrily pushed me out and strode away, saying loudly, want to provoke me? I'll show you whether or not I can save Diana. If you want to leave, leave quickly. I naturally had to pack up and go quickly. Just returning to the office, the company was already in complete chaos, people panicked. It turned out the HR director had just announced that all employees must go downstairs to donate blood. Before blood test results came out, no one was allowed to leave the company. A storm was about to erupt. Everything was developing in the worst direction I had predicted. When going downstairs, I happened to meet some pregnant women discussing in the company hallway how to avoid donating blood. I have Rh-negative blood type. I'm so scared. I stopped, but finally turned and left. Even if I worried about helping these people now, I still couldn't do anything. My strength alone couldn't get them out of the company. Moreover, I knew how crazy Marcus could be. As long as he offered enough money, these people would voluntarily donate blood, ignoring my advice. The painful experiences of my previous life had taught me to let go of excessive kindness and sympathy, respect others' fate, not bear karma for others. Otherwise I myself would be harmed. When I got home, I collapsed in the bathtub. Everything around seemed to sink into hazy illusions. Groggily I fell asleep without realizing when. I suddenly startled awake from a nightmare. By now the streetlights had just turned on. A colleague called to report that Diana had been admitted to the hospital and surgery was proceeding very smoothly, while they were still working overtime miserably. She complained on the phone. "Sister Sophie, today from the airport to hospital no. 1. They were escorted by hundreds of supercars clearing the way. So many people filmed videos and posted them online, speculating about what important figure would make such a display. Several of our departments are having to report and take down videos. Our hands are about to break. So exhausting. Probably won't sleep tonight." After hanging up, I scrolled on my phone for a while. Indeed, I couldn't find any related news. Currently Marcus was constantly by Diana's side while the company was managed by Chairman Ford. He must have spent considerable money to silence public opinion and handle the aftermath. I got up and walked to my desk, looking at the investigation report about Diana in the drawer, a cold smile curving at the corners of my mouth. In my previous life, I suggested surgery at the local hospital. First, because I was considering Ford Corporation's impact. Second, because I had investigated that Diana was absolutely not the simple and hardworking image she had always portrayed. She went to that godforsaken remote place just to seek new thrills with a photographer. This photographer in the photography world had many scandals, not only getting involved with various models but also being a famous broker in the circle. Having won international awards, this person had very wide connections, attracting quite a few fame, seeking women to throw themselves at him like moths to flame. After the car accident he was only slightly injured, but seeing Diana's terrible condition, he fled in fear. He denied everything. On one side was a young CEO who adored her, on the other a notorious playboy with a bad reputation. Yet Diana still chose the latter without hesitation. This proved she was absolutely an ambitious woman. She wanted fame. She wanted to climb even higher. In my previous life when she died, all sins vanished. I didn't need to dig up affairs of someone deceased. Moreover, though Marcus Ford wavered for a time, he quickly recovered his spirits. So I never mentioned this matter again, silently destroying that report. Before dying, what I regretted most was having to work hundreds of times harder than ordinary people to escape poverty from remote areas, only to end up buried together with a vain, lying, scheming woman becoming a sacrifice for their filthy love. I hate weak people like Marcus who stepped on my blood to find peace for themselves. Why should someone like him achieve success and satisfaction? The sound of a WeChat notification interrupted my train of thought. I took a deep breath to suppress my emotions, opened the screen to see a message from Marcus. Diana woke up. The chief surgeon even said it was a miracle. If it were someone else today, they definitely couldn't have survived. This is truly an achievement. Sophie, look clearly. This is the real strength of Ford Corporation. In the voice recording, he laughed triumphantly, arrogant to the extreme. A domineering line suddenly flashed in my mind. "I order you not to die, did you hear clearly?" True domineering CEO, deep love indeed. Congratulations CEO Ford. With your deep love, Miss Chen must be extremely moved. I smiled and sent a reply, very good, truly a medical miracle. Since it's a miracle, naturally it can't be buried in dust. 3 days later Diana woke up. Having experienced a tribulation, knowing what Marcus had done, she eagerly showed off on social media and to her circle of friends. The illustrative images were extremely impressive. For example, famous medical professors and experts being invited to the operating table, then rushing to catch flights. The mighty convoy of supercars clearing paths through congested city traffic, creating a lifeline named Diana. Thousands of corporation employees donating blood all night, not a single person daring to be absent. Everyone working together with united hearts, contributing their strength. Love without boundaries. Above the 9 photos was a short line. "Love you. You're so cool." To let everyone know about her miracle of survival. Diana also fully attached a medical record, detailing the severity of the accident. Liver, gallbladder, spleen and kidneys all had extensive ruptures. An ordinary person would have died long ago. Everyone doesn't know. The doctor said I used over 7 liters of blood, equivalent to replacing all my blood twice. Boo-hoo, I'm so moved. The person herself speaking out immediately caused a sensation no different from an atomic bomb. Diana was immediately crowned with the title, Blood Princess, climbing to #1 on hot searches, surpassing major celebrities, becoming famous everywhere. The beloved brother, in her mouth, was jokingly called Crazy Brother by netizens. Various KOLs and marketing accounts floated in with comments. Diana was already famous, but it was notoriety. Angry netizens automatically provided clues, determined to find out who this Crazy Brother was. By the time Marcus Ford realized things weren't good, he called on the entire company to participate in reporting and removing posts, but it was already too late. 3 days later, Mrs. Ford brought expensive supplements to find me. Harper, is this child still holding a grudge against me? Her tone was reproachfully intimate as she grasped my hand, as if the current public opinion attacks didn't affect her at all. But she didn't know, the unease in her eyes, the fatigue on her face, along with the newly grown white hair at her temples couldn't be hidden at all. I pulled my hand away with a cold smile. Mrs. Ford, if you have business, just speak directly. You probably don't have much time for chit-chat. A flash of displeasure crossed Mrs. Ford's eyes, but she still suppressed it, then with tears said, Harper, that woman has no good intentions. She really wants to destroy us. Marcus is naive and pure, that's why he was deceived by her. As CEO of a company about to go public, yet unable to predict how much damage this rescue would cause to the company's image and reputation, truly naive, truly pure. After scolding Diana, she softened her tone, hinting that if I was willing to help, she would accept me as a daughter-in-law. I firmly refused. With no other choice, Mrs. Ford could only lower her voice. Then you must return to the company to handle the aftermath. Even if you resign, you must work another month so we have time to find a replacement. All right, she brought up company regulations. I really had nothing more to say. I also never said I wouldn't return to Ford Corporation. Ford was in crisis. As the person in charge of public relations, if I left, who would dare hire me in the future? Moreover, I also wanted to witness firsthand what ending Marcus would have in this life. Returning to the company, the office atmosphere was filled with complaints about everything. The situation was worse than I imagined. Truly internal chaos with external enemies. First, Ford Corporation had been summoned by relevant authorities, required to quickly extinguish the wave of public opinion online, minimizing negative impacts to the maximum. Close business partners were finding ways to wash their hands of relationships one by one. The Playboy friends, because they lent Marcus supercars, were dragged onto hot searches, scolded by their families, wishing they could kill Marcus to vent their anger. Within the company, small shareholders led by Vice President Wilson, seeing the IPO about to collapse, not only wanted to overthrow Marcus but also wanted the Ford family to compensate their losses. Yet in this situation, Marcus had completely disappeared, spending all day at the hospital tenderly caring for his precious little girlfriend. The company account was empty. Previously, to save Diana all resources, connections and money had been drained clean. Now shareholders didn't want to spend another penny. Without flour, even the cleverest cook can't make dumplings. Mrs. Ford really had overestimated me. But having accepted responsibility, I had to find a way to solve it. Without money, there must be separate ways to handle it. I believed that rather than blocking the flow, it was better to unblock it. Currently, we should use a sincere attitude to answer the public's doubts. So I proposed to Chairman Ford and the shareholders to organize a press conference, publicly revealing the entire truth about this rescue to the public, avoiding malicious online forces using it to distort the facts. This rescue was indeed somewhat lacking in moderation, especially affecting public traffic and occupying many medical resources. I spoke seriously. But before human life, these things can be forgiven. As long as CEO Ford has the right attitude, self-reflects and apologizes, there's still a possibility of salvaging the company's image. Finally, the company agreed to this plan. After the meeting, I went to Hospital No. 1. Diana's social media account still retained those boastful images and status posts. Views remained at high levels, shares and reposts continued climbing dizzyingly. Everyone in the company knew she was Marcus's treasure, No one dared touch her, so only I could step forward to negotiate. Just arriving outside the hospital room, I heard Diana's suppressed growl, "Jason Zhang, you bastard, you almost killed me. Do you know that?" The man laughed despicably in a vile way. "If I hadn't run, would your boyfriend have desperately saved you like this? Speaking of which, you should thank me instead." Jason, that bastard photographer, was inside. I let go and stood quietly beside the hospital room door. I really couldn't do anything. But our cooperation ends here. Diana, you're famous now, but the Ford family is encountering difficulties. Are you really willing? The resources on my side guarantee I can take you to new heights. Diana hesitated a bit, but Marcus told me as long as I delete the posts, this matter will quickly blow over. It won't affect Ford Corporation. Jason laughed meaningfully. The bigger the waves, the more expensive the fish. Deleting posts is no different from cutting off your own retreat. Think about it, if not for this rescue, who would know who Diana is? The two discussed for a while. Finally he played his trump card of helping her enter the international fashion world. For a model like Diana, this was indeed an irresistible temptation. She immediately got excited. "I can definitely go." Jason directly threw her an invitation. Finally, Jason swaggered away, his face showing clear victory. I shook my head, abandoning the idea of negotiating with Diana. I wondered if Marcus's love could make her give up her ambitions. Just getting downstairs, my phone rang. My heart suddenly tightened, an indescribable unease rising within. "Department head Sophie, please come back quickly. A female employee from marketing miscarried from donating too much blood." The subordinate's voice on the other end was like machine gun fire. Now her whole in-law family has gathered at the company entrance. They're holding banners. That group is very fierce. Marcus really was amazing. Not only daring to use blood from pregnant women, but daring to use excessive amounts. There was truly nothing left to say. Just arriving at the hospital entrance, I saw Marcus carrying a food container walking over. "I heard you've returned to the company. If you're willing to atone for your sins, I'll let it go this time." He glanced sideways at me with those slanted eyes, his face high and mighty. Marcus would never know how ridiculous his image in my heart was at this moment. He was just a pathetic fool. Of course, in my previous life I was even more pathetic. "Sophie, Dad told me you had business with me." He was displeased, his face cold as he pulled my hand. I shook it off, speaking coldly. "Marcus, it seems your luck really is very poor. I don't need to find you anymore. Better prepare your apology well. Ford Corporation, even immortals can't save it now." Getting in the car, I immediately called the female employee Julia Chen. "Sister Sophie, I didn't expect it would turn out like this. Woo woo woo. CEO Ford said donating 1 ml of blood would give 10,000. I just thought it was fine." Julia cried while explaining. I asked if she knew her mother-in-law had brought people to the company to cause trouble. She timidly said her health was currently very weak, she couldn't stop her mother-in-law. After speaking, she hurriedly hung up. My eyes darkened. It seemed there was no hope left. This family was determined to latch onto Ford Corporation to death. Arriving at the company, I immediately invited Julia's mother-in-law into the office. To negotiate, the shrewd woman rolled her eyes, opening her mouth to immediately demand 10 million. Already 6 months pregnant, and it was a son. My golden grandson. Isn't this these heaven-damned capitalists treating us poor people's lives like grass? Julia's husband stood beside filming, looking smug. "Hand over the money quickly, or I'll post this video online so everyone knows your CEO Ford is still that crazy brother." But the company had no money left. The Chen family was pushing the Ford family to death. Even when Mrs. Ford knelt down to beg, it was useless. Finally, Chairman Ford had no choice but to shamelessly sell the private jet overnight. Originally bought for 200 million, now only sold for 40 million, giving the Chen family 10 million. Only 30 million remained. Marcus was called back to the company by Chairman Ford and scolded. His face was ashen. The difference was this time there was no trace of defiance or dissatisfaction in his eyes. Looking back, it was truly laughable to the point of teeth falling out. That day mobilizing the private jet to race against death, how majestic and imposing. In just a few short days, both person lost and plane gone. Marcus's bloodshot eyes could no longer maintain his former bearing. "You must be very pleased, right? Watching me as a joke." I shook my head. "Just a plane, but people are much more important." Marcus struggled even more. "Sophie Harper, you." I raised an eyebrow. I thought he was looking at me with complex eyes, his mouth seeming locked tight, unable to speak a single word. Finally feeling fear. Still too early. A cold smile curved at the corners of my mouth as I turned to leave. At this time my mood was terrible. Not because of Marcus, but because of that 6-month-old fetus that died in Julia's womb. I sat on the steps outside the company entrance, silently mourning that child. Then someone patted my shoulder. It was the Rh, negative blood type pregnant woman named Grace Zhao from the hallway that day. Department head Sophie, you must be having a hard time lately, right? Julia's mother-in-law must be very difficult. I was thinking if at that time I had stopped CEO Ford, then Julia my heart was truly uncomfortable. I had said I wouldn't interfere with others' karma anymore, but who should bear this sin? How can you be blamed? If you had stopped him, Miss Chen would have died, Grace said. Actually it's all because of financial pressure. At that time before drawing blood, she called home. Hearing there would be so much money, her mother-in-law even urged her to draw more, saying nothing would happen. Look at me. I didn't earn that money. Aren't I still fine? Don't think too much anymore. After greeting me, Grace left. I tossed and turned sleeplessly all night. Had to drink alcohol before I could sleep. The next day I suddenly heard colleagues gossiping that poor Julia, her in-laws had used her to get 10 million, then immediately demanded divorce. She had just miscarried and was already sent back to her parents' home. I stood frozen in place for a long time without moving. Diana's friend circles and social media indeed hadn't deleted the rescue content. The situation grew increasingly serious. Marcus's rock-solid promise that Diana would cooperate with crisis management now seemed like a joke to the entire company. Everyone secretly mocked him. He loved Diana with his whole heart while she only knew how to create scandals for herself, completely disregarding Ford Corporation's life or death, along with growing online voices calling to strictly investigate the background of Crazy Brother. Ford Corporation was also forced to make a decision. The shareholders demanded I quickly prepare a press conference, treating it as drowning men clutching at straws. I naturally complied, but no one expected Mrs. Ford, unable to bear watching her beloved son bow his head admitting fault, to accept a live interview invitation from a major media company right before the press conference. She dumped all the blame on me. She cried and complained that this entire rescue campaign was single-handedly orchestrated by me, that Marcus was just an innocent victim. Sophie Harper was sponsored through university by me. She always liked my son. Poor people like her dream of marrying into families like ours. The host wondered, then why didn't she let Diana die in that remote place? Why save her? Mrs. Ford laughed coldly. You all just go ask around the industry about how strong Sophie's crisis management abilities are. You think she couldn't foresee these consequences? She spoke boldly. She did it on purpose. Knowing my son loved Diana, she instigated and tempted my son to save her regardless of everything. She wanted to destroy my son's life. My son's only mistake was trusting Sophie too much and loving Diana too much. The host looked at her with an indescribable expression, forcing an awkward smile before the camera. The live comments flooded the screen. May I ask if Crazy Brother has reached adulthood yet? Haven't many doctors already analyzed that medical record? If not for Crazy Brother's money, Diana would have met the king of hell long ago. What if Sophie hadn't advised Crazy Brother to abandon her? Right, otherwise I can't imagine what expression this mother and son would show now. Mom, going to work at Ford Corporation is too scary. Just wanting to earn some salary, but the capitalists want people's lives too. Mrs. Ford completely didn't know the more she spoke the worse it got, still desperately trying to smear me to whitewash Marcus. This type of person without professional ethics is truly a malignant tumor in enterprises. She's already been fired by us. Hope other enterprises will carefully consider when recruiting this person. But the comment wave at this time was strangely unified, all unanimously declaring workers' lives are also lives, strongly condemning Ford Corporation. At this moment, among the uniform comments suddenly appeared a long post standing out, every word full of anger. She's lying. Marcus forced the entire company to test blood types. For those with Rh, negative blood type, he would meet privately, hinting if they didn't donate blood they'd be fired. Still need department head Sophie to instigate. How laughable. Someone from inside Ford Corporation spoke up. Netizens united in calling for her to say more. Mrs. Ford completely became invisible. My eyelids twitched. I vaguely guessed this person might be Julia. I'm that unfortunate pregnant blood donor. My child is gone. I was also divorced. Originally my child didn't need to die. But I don't have a good fate like his girlfriend. No skilled doctors to save me, no one to donate blood for me. Julia grew more agitated as she spoke. Marcus basically doesn't regard us as human. The ones suffering losses are us, the ones whose blood is sucked are us. Most hateful is his girlfriend, even using us as a joke to promote their love. It truly makes me feel disgusted to death. Ford's carefully planned whitewashing drama couldn't compare to Julia's words at all. The livestream ended. Ford Corporation's reputation plummeted. I stood alone on the balcony for a very long time. I didn't expect Julia to speak up for me, though she carried her own purposes and emotions. Thank you. I didn't dare call, only sent her a thank you text message, thanks. Julia didn't reply. As for Marcus, his identity was exposed very quickly. He was already photographed by reporters escorting Diana out of the hospital. Facing the reporters' pressure, someone as arrogant as him also felt annoyed, roaring before the cameras. Diana is my girlfriend. I have sufficient qualifications and ability to save her. Why shouldn't I save her? That woman's miscarriage has absolutely fucking nothing to do with me. I already paid her. This video segment, once posted, was like stabbing a hornet's nest. The IPO plan completely went up in smoke. The actions of mother and son made employees lose all confidence. Every day many people resigned. Even if HR shouted themselves hoarse, they couldn't attract a single person to interview. Marcus, originally someone who wouldn't bow his head, was initially very reluctant to hold a press conference. Mrs. Ford had played a preemptive strike, so he simply gave up on everything, acting recklessly like someone with nothing to lose. Diana was also implicated. When it involved human life, she finally got scared. The next day she hurriedly deleted all images and posts about that rescue. Her account posted a new apology video. Sorry, I was unconscious during the entire process, so I didn't know there were so many circumstances like this. Thank you to the woman who donated blood for me. I'm very sad about what that sister experienced. I will set up an eternal memorial tablet for her child. Her implied meaning, she was a patient. She nearly died and came back. She knew nothing. This was also the truth. After all, the ringleader was Marcus. Though Diana was ambitious as the rescued party, where was her fault? I still remember clearly. In my previous life, as soon as Diana had an accident, I immediately reported to her. Aunt Ford, you should come to the company. I'm worried CEO Ford will. She smiled encouragingly at me. Harper, I trust you. You must help look after Marcus. Don't let him cause chaos. With Julia as an example, the victims affected by that reckless rescue, knowing Crazy Brother's identity, all spoke out unanimously denouncing Marcus's selfishness and cold-bloodedness. My father had a heart attack that day. Because Ford Corporation's supercars blocked the road, he couldn't get emergency treatment in time. What gives him the right? Is his girlfriend's life precious while my father's life isn't a life? My child had a high fever of 39 degrees. Do you know how desperate I was when I got number 1000 plugs? Haha, turns out all the skilled doctors at hospital know. One that day went into surgery to save his precious girlfriend. I donate blood every year, yet when my mother had surgery there was no blood available. That blood princess needed Rh-negative blood, yet within just a few hours they could gather 10 liters. This is the privilege of the rich, right? Turns out poor people's blood is money, only rich people's blood is life. Upstairs, I'm crying. Public opinion was completely driven by anger. Ford Corporation was finished. The traffic department fined Marcus for obstructing traffic and disturbing public order. Marcus not only had to pay huge compensation to victims but was also detained for 15 days. Shareholders united to overthrow Marcus. The Ford family behind him also had to sell all assets for compensation, then were driven out of the company in shame and disgrace. Ford Corporation, after changing blood to survive, hurriedly changed its name while announcing the decision to punish Marcus, cutting off ties with the Ford family outside, completely severing the relationship. Everything temporarily settled down at this point. Reportedly before being taken to detention, Marcus was still loudly defending himself. My girlfriend was between life and death, shouldn't I have saved her? Those online critics should examine their own incompetence. I did nothing wrong. I was just saving someone. Marcus's stubbornness and rigidity only lasted 5 days. In detention he began cursing his mother for coming up with that stupid plan, causing him to miss the last chance to hold a press conference, and turn the situation around. But for some unknown reason he insisted on seeing me. So Mrs. Ford, with hair almost completely white, came to find me again. "I've come. I want to know what Marcus still wants to say to me at this point. Sophie, you must understand me. I occupied the lanes to save someone, that was emergency behavior. Please help me hire a lawyer. I can't endure another day here." I laughed coldly. "Marcus, what makes you think I would help you?" He suddenly got agitated. "You clearly could have stopped me that day. I always felt you were behaving too strangely. Turns out you were jealous. If I'd known you could harm so many people like this, I would have killed you beforehand." I gave him a hard slap. This was the first time I'd gotten angry since being reborn. "If not for my family, you would have been sold by your grandmother to that old lecher for dowry money. Everything you have now was given by my family. What gives you the right to refuse me?" My eyes looked at him coldly, enunciating each word. "Marcus, you remember my grandmother wanted to sell me. Well, do you know my mother died painfully from serious illness because we had no money for treatment? And my father had to sell blood to support us, finally dying from exhaustion at a construction site. How am I different from those people you harmed? What makes you think I would sympathize with you so you could bestow charity then force me to repay it?" Marcus pointed at me, shouting loudly, "Then you should have advised me even more. You just didn't want Diana and me to be together. Wanted to sabotage us. Marcus, you're not just stupid but stubbornly refusing to wake up." I shook my head in disappointment. "Sophie, don't be smug. I will definitely bring happiness to Diana. Your conspiracy won't succeed." Looking at Marcus's appearance, both angrily helpless and childishly ridiculous, my heart suddenly surged with myriad complex emotions. Why did I fall for and pity such a terrible person in my previous life? After Diana died, I helped him achieve fame and success, willingly leaving work to bear and raise children for him. But Marcus was just someone weak to the bone. Back then he truly wanted to save Diana, but didn't want to bear the risks of long-distance transport. That was also true. The unforeseen consequences, he also didn't want to take responsibility for. He was very greedy, wanting this, wanting that too. Only not wanting to bear responsibility. Did he really love Diana? Not necessarily. Otherwise, in my previous life he wouldn't have wavered before my objective analysis. My research advisor once said in class, "Remember, never give advice to family members standing outside the ICU. If saved successfully, that's their filial piety, not your credit. If the rescue fails, they'll blame you for making them lose both person and money. If you don't save, they might be at peace, but you'll have your corpse whipped for life." Human nature can be good to the extreme, and also evil to the extreme. To the extreme. My mistake in my previous life was using my straightforward honesty and sincerity to challenge human nature, because some people, not to say most, aren't worth doing so for. Marcus, embrace your love and self-reflect. Diana is still waiting for you to get out of prison. I coldly left, calculating the time. The day he gets out of prison should also be the day of Diana's first performance at Crazy Horse. My former assistant called me, saying Mrs. Ford, after learning Diana was preparing to bravely attack the Crazy Horse stage, went crazy with anger, planning to find Diana to make a scene. Ha, so funny. She's afraid her son will lose face. At this time I was carrying fruit to visit my advisor from years past. My giving up the surgical dream that year had disappointed him greatly. I wondered if he was still angry with me this year. In the elevator I happened to meet the teacher's favorite student, also my senior from 2 years above, Daniel Quinn. "So Ford Corporation collapsed. Are you planning to return to your proper field?" He put one hand in his pocket, looking at the fruit in my hands, then raising an eyebrow. My eyes flickered slightly. "Senior, don't tease me anymore. I've been doing public relations for 6 years now, also considered to have some small achievements. Not thinking about changing careers for now." Daniel nodded, looking thoughtful. Sure enough, the teacher wasn't happy seeing us, scolding us from head to toe. One a stinking merchant, one a smooth, talking fake. "Don't come here anymore in the future. I don't welcome you." Daniel and I looked at each other helplessly and laughed. Actually, the teacher just regretted that our talents weren't being used properly. After graduation, Daniel took over the family business while I dove into public relations. Truly, we were a merchant and smooth talker. Before leaving, I bowed deeply. "Teacher, lately I often recall your teachings. Though I realized late, it's not too late. I believe wherever I am in the future, I'll keep getting better. The teacher waved us away while glaring, even giving back all the fruit too. At the elevator door, the teacher suddenly called Daniel back. That kid, your company is so big, arrange a job for Harper. Her speaking ability is no worse than her practical work ability. This tone of both disdain and protection made my eyes sting. Daniel smiled, but didn't respond. Going down to the parking lot together, he suddenly turned and asked, I remember you graduated as valedictorian that year, right? Yes. I calmly looked at him. Good grades, but unfortunately not as good as finding a man to marry off to. Working in an office doesn't suit you. He shook his head at me and got in his car. I breathed in his exhaust fumes, my eyes darkening. Daniel really knew how to needle people. Today unexpectedly meeting him at our old teacher's place. But having met, fighting for an opportunity for myself shouldn't be wrong, right? After all, with Marcus' collapse, I didn't receive any benefits. Ford Corporation quickly went from a company about to go public to a disaster changing owners. As the person in charge of public relations, it was hard for me to stay out of it. This was the biggest failure in my 6 years in the profession. Though Mrs. Ford's attempt to blame me didn't succeed, I'm afraid temporarily no company would dare hire me. Since the times don't wait for anyone, might as well give myself some rest. But on the way to the travel company, I received a call from Quinn Corporation's HR department. After the screening manager entered me together, after basic inquiry, HR sternly asked, Ms. Harper, Ford Corporation encountered such a serious PR crisis, yet the public relations department you were in charge of seemed to disappear. May I know the reason? I smiled. We were really wronged. If not for Mrs. Ford showing people her back, I could have hidden Crazy Brother's identity even longer. Daniel coughed lightly, looking at me disapprovingly. I stopped joking, looking straight into his eyes. Regarding private matters, could we ask others to leave? After reading the crisis PR plan with the title, Taking an Unconventional Approach Using Sincere, Frank Self-Reflection to Face Public Questioning, that I had presented to Ford Corporation's board of directors back then, Daniel's expression finally softened. He signaled for me to sit, then asked, why wasn't it implemented? Miss Chen's hot news and Mrs. Ford's livestream ruined our plans. Daniel looked at me for a moment, suddenly emphasizing, so you want to tell me that the famous expert in the field actually has no predictive ability, only knows how to be caught off guard. One person is the corporate leader's girlfriend, one person is a mother who dotes on her son to the point of madness. Sophie, you can't not investigate, not guard against these key figures. If you really wanted to save Marcus, they wouldn't have had a chance to cause trouble. My eyes flickered slightly. I don't deny this. Denying would be like admitting my abilities were zero. The strong leadership aura emanating from Daniel indeed wasn't as easy for me to persuade and grasp as Marcus Ford. Deanna wants to go to Crazy Horse, even had entrance tickets very early. I knew she wouldn't cooperate with me to suppress public opinion. But I didn't tell Marcus. Ford definitely wouldn't stand by watching her son admit fault. Of course I also calculated she would take action. Daniel's eyes darkened. Sophie, you've changed. I shrugged and smiled. CEO Quinn, the whole world knows Marcus is blind in love. So why should I offend Diana? Even if I revealed the truth about the facts, would he really be impartial? As for Mrs. Ford, a mother who loves her son like crazy, she long ago hinted she wanted me to be the scapegoat. You think she would listen to me? But the Sophie from before would definitely have done it. Daniel looked at me intently, speaking word by word. My heart tightened, a sharp pain rising within. Indeed, in my previous life with Mrs. Ford's boundless kindness toward me, I absolutely wouldn't let the Ford family meet disaster. With Marcus, I always had much tolerance and understanding. Later, out of heartache and soft-heartedness, I gave him my whole heart. But what did I get in return? Remembering my previous life's ending of one corpse, two lives, my eyes turned cold, answering with a firm voice. Woo women. From birth have been bound with countless invisible rules. Must be understanding, must be gentle and obedient, must tend the family. But in this already unfair dog-eat-dog society, ultimately it's those who are cruel, selfish, cold-blooded and love themselves more who live better. Wasting kindness on the self-destructive actions of fools is just tormenting oneself. Be in whatever position and do that job. I have a responsibility to advise, but I don't want to test human nature anymore. I looked straight at Daniel with a bright smile. Senior, to speak frankly, I just don't want to be entangled with the Ford family anymore. Am I wrong? Daniel froze for a moment. Then those eyes that were cold as ice round actually showed a hint of warmth. Then he actually applauded. I apologize for what I said before. You're very suited for the corporate environment. Actually, Daniel was right. In my previous life I had left work to find a man to marry. I felt fortunate that in this life I'd awakened, able to start over. In the future, I would definitely hold tight to my own female lead script. The day Marcus got out of detention was also the day I officially started work at Quinn Corporation. To witness Marcus's expression when cheated on with my own eyes, I deliberately went to work late one day. Unexpectedly, Daniel also wanted to come along to watch the drama. Outside the detention center, reporters and freelance media had gathered, packed so densely water couldn't flow through. Don't tell me he still doesn't know Miss Chen is about to go dance striptease. Daniel stroked his chin asking me. I didn't say. Surely Mrs. Ford couldn't bear to tell him the truth either. Daniel gave me a thumbs up, truly ruthless. I patted his shoulder. Senior, if he's a tyrant, then you're an enlightened ruler. Rest assured we're like-minded developing together. I'll definitely pour all my strength into assisting you. Daniel laughed. The professor was right, your speaking ability really isn't bad. I winkied. Senior, don't take advantage then act innocent. A PR manager with a clumsy mouth, do you even want them? Daniel suddenly got angry. Stop talking nonsense. I haven't forgotten 6 years ago I extended an invitation. Yet that foolish girl refused me. I thought that girl wanted to become a famous surgeon. Who knew she'd cheerfully run to that small temple Ford Corporation? Ford took 6 years just preparing to go public. Compared to a behemoth like Quinn Corporation, it truly was just a small temple. I could only clasp my hands begging forgiveness. Deanna's here. Someone suddenly shouted. The crowd automatically parted to make way. I was shocked. I didn't expect Diana to come pick up Marcus. This was beyond my expectations. When women become ruthless, even men have no chance. Not even letting go of this promotional opportunity. Daniel leisurely slapped his thigh, squinting in commentary. I suddenly understood. Indeed, where was any sentiment left? Just using Marcus to become a bit more famous, that's all. In the past there was a high and mighty capitalist who for love disregarded everything, even mobilizing his private jet, forcing thousands to donate blood, and using hundreds of luxury supercars to clear the way. For the woman in his dreams, he bore countless netizens' criticism without regret. Before detention he still spoke up for love, saying he wasn't wrong. Truly a rare love warrior. Yet now penniless with nothing. The only thing he could convince himself of was that he'd protected his beloved's life and preserved this love. You could say Diana was Marcus's only face and dignity left in this world. These past 15 days, news of Diana going to perform at Crazy Horse continuously occupied hot searches, because everyone wanted to witness this pure love warrior's final curtain call. How arrogant was Crazy Brother back then, viewing lowly lives as worthless as grass to such a degree. Today people were even more eager to watch how badly this couple would argue and break up. Marcus joyfully embraced Diana, emotionally saying, Diana, you haven't fully recovered yet. You really didn't need to come pick me up. These 2 weeks. They haven't given you trouble, have they? Don't worry, from now on we'll live happily, letting all of them see. He caught sight of me in the crowd, deliberately speaking loudly. Diana is now a star, being actively promoted by her company. Her personal value increased 100-fold. Recently she'd been quite proud and self-satisfied. Where would she still care about few sweet words? You haven't bathed in how many days? She wrinkled her nose, covering it and pushing Marcus away. The surrounding reporters burst into laughter without any respect. Camera flashes flickered continuously. Completely losing face, how could someone as refined as Marcus bear such humiliation? You despise me. If not for you, how would I end up like this? Diana immediately showed evasion, hurriedly washing her hands of responsibility. Marcus, don't wrongly accuse me. I knew nothing. If I'd known saving me would harm so many people like this, I definitely wouldn't have agreed to let you save me. Just thinking about so many people's blood flowing in my body makes me anxious, unable to sleep all night. Woo-woo. This woman's fickleness really made people shake their heads in amazement. A straightforward man loudly shouted, Diana, you saying that isn't right. Keep some shame. About to go to Crazy Horse and still pretending to be pure. Stop whitewashing. Someone echoed him. Marcus's face was already purple with anger from Diana's words, about to explode when he unexpectedly heard this news. His whole body froze in place, face deathly pale, both hands tightly gripping Diana's shoulders, looking like he wanted to eat her alive. What crazy horse performance? Explain clearly to me. Diana lost patience, saying, still pretending, didn't your mother tell you? Crazy Horse is my opportunity to enter the world's top fashion circles. Only a fool would refuse. Daniel and I, not being industry insiders after all, were quickly blocked out by reporters and freelance media. Unable to squeeze into the crowd, we returned to the car. I opened a live stream. At this moment the comment stream was cursing terribly, lusting so much of others' blood, saving a stripper. Better given to dogs. That Ford Corporation employee's poor baby. And that father who had a heart attack probably can't rest in peace either. My fingertips trembled, phone slipping from my hand. Daniel quickly caught it. Seeing my pale complexion, he gently patted my shoulder. Don't blame yourself anymore. The baby's mother volunteered. As for that elderly heart attack patient, his condition was very critical. The doctor on the ambulance also said at the time, even with emergency treatment there wasn't much significance. I knew if not for that, Marcus couldn't have only been detained for 15 days. I smiled at him. It's fine. I'll adjust. I looked at the comment stream again. Oh my God, for the first time I feel somewhat bad for this crazy brother. The camera turned toward Marcus. The former young and talented CEO now wore a wrinkled suit, walking unsteadily, eyes completely lacking spirit, his whole being exuding desperation, like being betrayed and abandoned by the whole world. He gritted his teeth, growling. You can't go, did you hear? Don't embarrass me. The tone was extremely complex, like anger, like desperate pleading and helplessness all mixed together. Someone commented, first time I've seen so many emotions on one person's face. True, when people are truly heartbroken, their acting really explodes. Amidst everyone's criticism around them, Diana backed down. She opened her purse, took out several stacks of money and stuffed them into Marcus's hands. I know you treated me well. Consider this money as my compensation to you. Your mother almost clawed my face to shreds. I won't hold that matter against her anymore. Anger exploded. Marcus threw the thick stacks, full 10,000s, hundreds of thousands in cash, up into the air. He roared, full of indignation. You cheap woman. You think I, Marcus, lack this bit of money? Who are you looking down on? To save you I spent billions. Counting Ford Corporation's change of ownership, that number truly was much larger than 1 billion. Money bills flew scattered like a red rain, creating a scene both magnificent and bitter. Diana stamped her foot. Madmen. Still think you're CEO Ford. Take it if you want, don't if you don't. Having said that, she turned and left. People around began picking up money. Marcus stood frozen in place like someone who'd lost their soul, still not moving half a step. Don't pick up. Don't pick up. This is our money. Move away quickly. Put it down. A shrill female voice rang out, stopping everyone from picking up money. She fought to grab money while constantly muttering, who says we don't need it? This is our money. Everyone recognized it was Mrs. Ford and backed away. Marcus snapped out of his daze, pulling his mother's hand, shouting, Mom, what are you doing? Don't pick up anymore. Mrs. Ford's hair was completely white, face wrinkled and creased from lack of care. She hugged her son, tears streaming down. Marcus, our home has no money left. Still drowning in debt. This 100,000 is enough for our home to live a long time. Don't be stubborn anymore. Marcus's hands dropped limply, looking around hopelessly, mouth muttering, Diana name, Mrs. Ford angrily scolded. I can't let her go to Crazy Horse, Marcus stubbornly said, immediately chasing after Diana. Marcus. Just leave her alone. She's just a dirty stripper. That rotten thing has been played with and tossed aside by men in the circle with clearly marked prices. You've been deceived by her. Mrs. Ford chased after her son, shouting loudly. Marcus's body stiffened, standing still for a moment, then suddenly holding his head and screaming. The screams rose up, echoing endlessly. Daniel gently tapped the steering wheel. Marcus has mentally collapsed. Might develop mental illness, I coldly said. Someone who avoids responsibility naturally can't accept their own failure, let alone failing so miserably, losing face, being trampled underfoot like this. Marcus, having your sincere heart trampled under the filthy mud, how does that feel? You must have experienced it deeply by now. In my previous life you had my protection, lived in glory, yet coldly watched me bleed to death, not the slightest bit moved. Compared to today's Diana, both bullying others while being ungrateful, even stabbing in the back, how similar you two are. Those who betray people's sincere hearts must swallow 1,000 silver needles. This is your karma, using money to manipulate human life, ultimately being toyed with by money. The ending is truly satisfying. Using money to manipulate human life, ultimately being toyed with by money. The ending is truly satisfying. Using money to manipulate human life, ultimately being toyed with by money. The ending is truly satisfying. +1. Using money to manipulate human life, ultimately being toyed with by money. The ending is truly satisfying. +2. These agreeing comments rolled like snowballs, continuing endlessly one after another. I stared at the screen in a daze, emotions complex. Daniel gently tapped my head. Unable to help it, I burst out laughing. This scene is like having just finished watching a good brutal film. Everyone stupidly looking at the cast list, not wanting to leave for the longest time. My chaotic emotions were suddenly dispersed by him. Right, senior. The curtain has fallen on the play, it should end. Alright, turn on the lights and leave here. Push open the door to face reality. Daniel started the car and left the scene. 3 months later, news about Ford Corporation's breathtaking rescue had almost disappeared online. No one mentioned Crazy Brother or Blood Princess anymore. The day I officially passed probation evaluation was also the day news arrived that Diana had failed conquering the international fashion world, was abandoned by the investment circle, returned home and was blacklisted. My former colleagues called one after another to gossip with me. Sister Sophie, it's too much. Heard Mrs. Ford was so overjoyed she had to be hospitalized to tell him the good news. Hospitalized? I raised an eyebrow. I hadn't paid attention to news of those two for a long time. My colleague was shocked. You don't know. After he got out, his spirit wasn't quite normal. He kept crazily running to the company saying he was CEO of a listed company, also saying you were his wife. So ridiculous. Security caught him and he was so scared he wet his pants, crying pitifully saying you should come save him, saying he was wrong, apologizing to you and the child and all kinds of things. We all said he's really gone crazy. I smiled. So it seems he really has gone crazy. Seeing I truly had no more interest in those two, my colleague said a few polite words and hung up. Becoming an official Quinn Corporation employee, my future was already determined. Daniel generously invited me to dinner that evening. Persuaded by him to drink a few glasses, I got drunk not knowing where my soul had drifted. My soul swayed as if crossing some barrier, drifting to a space both strange and familiar. Have you heard about Julia's matter? So pitiful. During postpartum confinement her husband cheated, was abused by her mother-in-law and bullied by her brother-in-law. She couldn't think straight and jumped from a building committing suicide. Yeah, even made the newspapers, so pitiful. That child was also pitiable. Meeting such a family surely won't have a single day of peace. At Ford Corporation in the break room, several women animatedly gossip, even planning to go together after work to buy a basket of rotten eggs to throw at Julia's husband's house to vent anger. I saw myself with dark circles making coffee, then walking out. Those women saw me and scattered. I remember now. This was my previous life, half a year after Diana died. The company was at its busiest preparing to go public. I had to work overtime for several nights straight. Several female employees didn't know I'd been in the break room since early, so were casually gossiping. I saw myself groggily shaking my head, rubbing my temples, looking at those women's panic-fing backs and laughing. I muttered, Zig, what are they so afraid of? Or were they badmouthing me behind my back? Suddenly the scene before my eyes rippled like waves, swaying then going blurry. I panicked trying to push through the layers of fog to clear it. Sophie Harper. Sophie Harper. Harper? Someone continuously called my name beside my ear. I startled awake, then surprisingly realized I was still sitting in the restaurant, my whole body slumped over the table. Daniel was shaking my hand. I quietly pulled back then unconsciously touched my face. My whole hand was ice cold and soaking wet. Meeting his probing gaze, I smiled buoyantly like flowers blooming. Senior, it was a dream, a beautiful dream. An extremely beautiful dream. I was overjoyed. He shook his head helplessly. Lil's paid. I nodded, steps light as I followed behind him. In this life, Julia lost her child and was divorced. This ending was very good. Everything is the best arrangement. The ancients' words truly weren't wrong. This one should give up the so-called kind heart. Don't easily interfere with others' karma and bear their fate, otherwise you yourself will be harmed. But within my abilities, I also won't be stingy with my hidden compassion. Because this world, after all, is always beautiful. Senior, I want to introduce a colleague for a position. Is that okay? I chased after Daniel. He didn't even turn around. Don't go through back doors. Pass the interview properly on your own merit, and that's fine. I smiled brightly. Yes, I understand. 3 months had passed since that dramatic day. The news about Ford Corporation's breathtaking rescue operation had almost completely vanished from the internet. Crazy brother, or blood princess, anymore. Life had moved on, as it always does. The day I officially passed my probation evaluation at Quinn Corporation was also the day news broke that Diana had spectacularly failed in her attempt to conquer the international fashion world. She had been abandoned by investors, forced to return home, and was now completely blacklisted from the industry. My former colleagues from Ford Corporation called one after another, eager to share the latest gossip. Sister Sophie, you won't believe this. I heard Mrs. Ford was so overjoyed by Diana's downfall that she had to be hospitalized just to share the good news with Marcus. Hospitalized? I raised an eyebrow, mildly curious. To be honest, I hadn't paid attention to any news about those two for quite some time. My colleague was shocked by my ignorance. What? You really don't know? Sister Sophie, after Marcus got out of detention, his mental state completely deteriorated. He's been showing up at the company like a madman, claiming he's still the CEO of a publicly traded corporation. And get this, he keeps telling everyone that you're his wife. It's both tragic and ridiculous. When security tried to remove him, he was so terrified that he wet himself right there in the lobby. He was crying pathetically, begging for you to come save him, saying he was wrong, apologizing to you and some child. We all agree he's completely lost his mind. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. So it seems he really has gone insane after all. Sensing that I truly had no lingering interest in the Ford family's fate, my colleague exchanged a few more pleasantries before hanging up. That evening, having officially become a permanent employee at Quinn Corporation, my future finally felt secure and determined. Daniel generously treated me to a celebratory dinner at an upscale restaurant. Under his persistent encouragement, I drank a few more glasses of wine than I should have. Soon I was completely intoxicated, my consciousness floating somewhere between reality and dreams. My soul felt like it was swaying, crossing through some invisible barrier into a space that was both hauntingly familiar and eerily strange. In this dreamlike state, I heard voices, women gossiping as they always do in office break rooms. Did you hear what happened to Julia? It's absolutely heartbreaking. During her postpartum recovery period, she discovered her husband was having an affair. Her mother-in-law tortured her relentlessly, and her brother-in-law bullied her constantly. The poor woman couldn't bear it anymore. She jumped from their apartment building. Yes, I saw it in the newspaper. What a tragedy, the whole situation is just devastating. That poor baby too. Born into such a dysfunctional family, they never would have had a single day of peace or happiness. I realized I was witnessing a scene from my previous life. I was in Ford Corporation's break room, watching several female colleagues discuss Julia's fate while planning their revenge. They were organizing to buy rotten eggs to throw at her ex-husband's house after work, their anger palpable. I saw my past self, exhausted, with dark circles under my eyes, making coffee. This was 6 months after Diana's death, during the most intense period of Ford Corporation's IPO preparations. I had been working overtime for several consecutive nights, barely sleeping. Those gossiping women hadn't realized I'd been in the break room since early morning. When I walked out with my coffee, they scattered like startled birds, fear evident in their hasty retreat. I watched my past self shake my head groggily, rubbing my temples while observing their panicked flight. My past self muttered with a bitter laugh. Why are they so terrified? Were they talking about me behind my back? Suddenly, the scene before my eyes began to ripple like disturbed water. Everything wavered and blurred. I felt panic rising as I desperately tried to push through the fog, to see more clearly what had happened in that previous life. Sophie. Sophie Harper. Harper. A voice persistently called my name, pulling me back. I startled awake, finding myself still in the restaurant, slumped over the table. Daniel was gently shaking my shoulder, concern evident in his eyes. I slowly pulled back, unconsciously touching my face. My hand came away cold and wet with tears I hadn't realized I'd been crying. Meeting his questioning gaze, I forced myself to smile brilliantly, like flowers blooming in spring. "Senior, it was just a dream," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "A beautiful dream. An extremely beautiful dream." The relief I felt was overwhelming. In this life, Julia had lost her child and been divorced, but she was still alive. This ending, while tragic, was infinitely better than her jumping to her death. Everything truly was the best possible arrangement. Daniel shook his head with gentle exasperation. "Come on, let's go. I've already paid the bill." I nodded, feeling unexpectedly light as I followed him out of the restaurant. The cool night air cleared my head further. As we walked toward the parking lot, I reflected on how different this life had become. The ancients were right. One must learn to let go of the compulsion to save everyone. Don't carelessly interfere with others' karma or bear their fate, or you'll only harm yourself in the end. Yet within my capabilities, I would never be stingy with my compassion. Because this world, despite all its cruelty and unfairness, still held beauty worth protecting. "Senior," I called out to Daniel as we reached his car. "I'd like to recommend a colleague for a position at Quinn Corporation. Would that be possible?" He didn't even turn around, but I could hear the smile in his voice. "No using back doors. If they pass the interview properly on their own merits, then it's fine." I smiled brightly at his back. "Yes, I understand completely." As Daniel unlocked his car, I knew he was thinking of Julia. Though I couldn't change her fate entirely, perhaps I could offer her a new beginning, a chance to rebuild her life with dignity and purpose. It was the least I could do. The night air was crisp and clear. For the first time in both my lives, I felt truly free. Free from the Ford family's toxic gratitude, free from Marcus's twisted love, free from the burden of trying to save people who didn't want to be saved. My phone buzzed with a message. It was from an unknown number, but somehow I knew it was Julia. "Thank you for the recommendation, Sister Sophie. I'll do my best at the interview." I typed back quickly. "Just be yourself. You're stronger than you know." As Daniel's car pulled away into the night, I stood there for a moment longer, breathing in the promise of tomorrow. In this life, I would write my own story, not as someone's savior or sacrifice, but as the protagonist of my own destiny. The city lights tinkled like stars brought down to earth. Somewhere out there, Marcus was lost in his madness, Diana was facing the consequences of her ambitions, and Mrs. Ford was dealing with the ruins of her family's empire. But here, in this moment, I was exactly where I needed to be. The second chance at life hadn't been wasted after all.